welcome back to episode 6 of the Industry Leaders Podcast. Maria Barova here, Clean Health Master Coach and WBFF Pro. And of course, we have the CEO and founder of Clean Health, Dane McDonald. And today we have quite a fundamental guest, I would like to say. Our listeners may know
Firstly, before you get there, though, I can't even believe it's like episode 6 of season 2. It's gone really fast, hasn't it?
And our guests this season have been awesome. The conversations have been
They have.
I'm just so excited to introduce our next guest. Our listeners may know him as the Glute Guy. He is the man behind the hip thrust. Bret Contreras is going to be joining us today. And man, I owe him all the thanks and gratitude. I've actually been doing hip thrusts have been a staple in my training for the past few years, from programming for myself and my clients.
And I think he really kind of revolutionized it, right? And kind of, made the booty vogue, right? In vogue. And I think like I've known Bret for quite a few years. It's been actually a few years since we've actually spoken. So I'm looking forward to get him on. Like he's a pioneer, I think, in, what we take for granted today in terms of glute training and kind of, building up, these great posteriors. Like he's been a big kind of, person that has really pushed this kind of forward. So can't wait to get him on.
I'm so excited for the podcast, and I'm really excited to have you on today. I was talking with Dane prior to having you on about how I give you all the gratitude and thanks for giving us the exercise that all girls are very thankful for. We'll talk about it in our podcast. So let's kick it off by saying what a pleasure to have you on, Bret. And let's give our listeners who may not be familiar with you a little bit more about the beginning of your journey in the industry to how you got to be known as the Glute Guy.
Well, I start off as a high school math teacher, and then during my prep periods and my lunch periods, and then at nighttime, I'd have girlfriends and they'd be like, "Why are you always on your computer reading?" I just couldn't stop reading about strength and conditioning. Before the internet. Dane, how old are you?
39, mate. Yeah, I mean, hopefully I don't look it, but look, I can relate to that. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, T-Nation and things like that, like there wasn't much to look at. It was magazines.
Before T-Nation, like before the internet, I would go to the grocery store or the library and I'd read all the magazines, all the muscle magazines, and that's how I got my information. So once I stumbled upon these websites, I was like a kid in a candy shop. I'm like, free information, and I would just soak it up. And I was limited to how much content was out there. I mean, any site that had strength training content on there, I watched it, I read it, I was religiously. And even the forums, I'd lurk on all the forums, and I was just a sponge. But ironically, I didn't go into that because I thought, there's no money to make as a personal trainer. What do? You just train clients. How much do you charge? You're always struggling to get clients. And then now look at me. But
I was going to say, I think this generation, like I don't think they realize sometimes the difference, like, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, there was no personal training industry really.
And we had to, like get a check from people like, hey, we bring a check.
Like, go and train people out in parks.
Yeah, you don't have the luxury of just Googling exercises or opening Instagram to watch demos. Like even when I started in the fitness industry, right before Instagram came out around 2013, 2014, it was still, YouTube videos and all of that. There were so many options out there, and hearing you guys talk about these things, I'm like, man, I sometimes take it for granted. Like,
now you have an Instagram.
Yeah.
You've got a link tree that links to all your things. You've got a PayPal or like whatever payment gateway you use. And there's never been an easier time than now to be an entrepreneur. It's so easy. People don't understand how it used to be like you wanted extra money. Like you had a real job. And then when you wanted to make extra money, you had to like, okay, I'll be a paper boy, I'll mow lawns, I'll you'd have to be the pool boy or something, like, and you'd have to go door to door and try to drum up clients and stuff like that. And now it's like you just put on your Instagram, here's the classic, you do one show and then all of a sudden you're a coach now. So DM me for coaching, information. And it's that much easier to make side money. And it's so nice because, I was a high school math teacher for 6 years. And I was always reading about strength training. And I was always wishing I could go into that as a field, but I never thought I could make money. But one day I was getting my master's degree in education. I was getting in secondary education. And I was like, my professor, we had to do this final project, and I did mine on strength training. I thought I'd have to do it on math, but she let me do it on strength training. Then she called me up and she's like, Bret, like, how many professors call you on the phone? That's very rare. She called me up and she's like, Bret, this project is so much better than anything I've ever received like, you probably spent 3 times more hours than any student I've ever seen. This is a masterpiece. You're clearly obsessed with strength and conditioning. You should go into it as a field. I have no doubt you're not a good math teacher, but life is too short to waste, not pursuing your passion. And so it's funny, I've tried to look that woman up like 5 years ago. I can't find her. I want to go tell you changed my life, and you changed the lives of many people through me impacting the lives of others. I don't know, I don't know if I would have ended up in that field. She said that it plants the seeds that I couldn't stop thinking about it. So that was back in 2005 or something. And then I ended up opening up my own gym in 2006. And then I ended up, back there, I opened up a gym in Scottsdale, and all my clients would be like, Bret, we've trained with all the trainers here in Arizona. You're the best. You should be on Channel 3, News Channel 3. You should be the fitness expert. You should be blogging. You should be writing for Men's Health. And I'm like, I'm so busy as a trainer. How do you even do that? How do you get your foot in the door? Ironically, I went on to do all that. I never reached out to anyone. They reach out to you when you're popular enough. I never pitched a book. I never messaged anyone to speak at a seminar. They all come to you when you're popular. But anyway, and like I wrote for Men's Health, and it was funny because everything I did, my grandpa, before he passed away, he subscribed to Men's Health. That was like his grandson. He contributed to Men's Health. But I'm so glad I went into that field. And then, I started out not caring about money because I was used to making 30 grand a year as a teacher. I didn't need any money. I've been frugal my whole life. So when I started out, I had all the experts in the industry telling me, Bret, you're so smart. We can tell you're going to be you're going to be a big timer one day, but you need to learn the business side of things. You should be charging way more for this ebook. You shouldn't be giving away so much information. And I was like, I have so much more information to give out. I just want my methods to be popular. I'm going to just keep blogging and blogging and blogging. And I never focused on the business end of things. I know people whose first year in fitness, they made $200,000. I think I made like 30 or 55, and then like 70, and then like 80. And then it wasn't until several years down the road I started making good money. And then when I moved to San Diego, I just blew up. But I never focused on the money. It was like, I had a friend tell me, you should, you're the world's glute expert and you don't have a flagship glute training program. I'm like, I have Strong by Bret. She's like, that sounds like powerlifting.
Powerlifting, yeah.
And I said, well, I have the trademark Booty by Bret. I've just never used it. She's like, change the name to Booty by Bret and actually promote it every once in a while, which I still never promote my stuff. I don't know why. I just don't like being, I'm a PhD. I'm a scientist. I don't want people to think I'm all about promoting my stuff. But that was when I went, like, overnight, I tripled my membership, and then it just kept growing from there. So it's been nice seeing what this industry, there's the coolest thing ever too, is like, there's so many ways to make money. After my PhD, I didn't like writing anymore. I just don't like writing. So now I just talk. I do podcasts. I do seminars. The most I have to write is a little caption, a few times a week. So,
but I think one takeaway I hear from all that is, like, when you talk about the business and how that's grown, it's you focusing on what you were passionate about, which was helping people and getting results. That was part one. And that's something I always tell people. It's like, forget about the rest. Like, if you want to be successful, just focus on whatever your niche is and helping people. And if you do it long enough and you're good enough, eventually, like you mentioned, you'll start to get the rewards of it long term.
Yeah.
Dane, I can't tell you, like I made this list. I'll pull it up as I'm speaking, but I made a list. It took me 2 days to see this list of topics here, and you can just scroll. That's my list of topics to write about, and that's on my notes app. But I tell people, pretend, because I have my I have my PhD in sports science, but I have my master's degree in curriculum instruction. And I tell people who are interested in joining the field, I said, don't go to these marketing people. Do not go to these marketing people who promise you the world. If they were in my shoes, they wouldn't be doing marketing, because if you knew how to market, if you knew what you were doing,
If you become
you'd be up here, and you would not waste your time with this, because I don't waste my time with that. I'm making so much money on my own with my own content. They pretend to know what they're doing, but they're missing one big ingredient, the content. So they might know how to dress things up, but the content is always king. So I tell people, just make a list and pretend you're a teacher. Pretend you want your mom to start lifting weights. What are the things you would teach her? You're going to die in 1 year of cancer. God, that sounds gruesome, but you're going to die in 1 year of cancer, and you want to film 365 days worth of stuff that your mom can read or watch and learn. What would you teach her? You'd probably teach her the basics of this, how to, you'd teach her how to squat. You'd teach her how to design, like program design basics. You teach her all these things. And I'm like, teach people something every day and watch your followers every day. Make a post a day for 3 years, just trying to educate people, and then make it a nice quality post and watch your followers grow. But everyone tries all these tactics and they don't work.
Yeah, actually, I can vouch for that work. When I first started working with Clean Health, and Dane and the guidance from the team was, I really needed to push more towards education. I had so much knowledge, but when you go to my Instagram, it was kind of a thing where it's like, how do we know? And I kind of shifted a lot of my content to be like free education, providing things for the people who follow me, just to have as basic knowledge. And I feel like even though it may seem like there's an abundant amount of trainers out there, there's still so many people that are clueless about some of these things. And I saw, that steady rise keep going up because I was providing that education and getting better feedback than just, here's a cute picture and here's just my workout, general workout. Like providing education and following that passion of, being a teacher. And that's something that you are. You're a teacher, you're an innovator, personal trainer, best-selling author, lifter, and researcher. But can you tell us how you came to have this niche of training all things glutes? I know it's not all you do, but it is a main focus in what people know you for.
Okay, so I got a quick thing I wanted to chime in. Maria, I looked at your Instagram yesterday, and you do a good job of that. And I can tell you wonder when that shift, and so did I.
I appreciate
One day,
that.
like, I don't know if it was like 4 or 5 years ago, I was like, man, all I'm posting every day is my workouts. That's not really educating people. That's like, look at my workout. Who cares, And then I was also reposting infographics that my colleague would make, Chris Beardsley, when we did the research review together. Well, that's being lazy. And I'm putting no thought into my Instagram. And once I decide I'm going to learn Canva and learn how to make these infographics, I'm going to actually film videos with the intent of teaching people stuff. My following went up 1,200 followers a day for 3 years. I mean, I went like
awesome.
3 years. It was.
I was going to say, last time we spoke would have been about 2 and a bit years ago. And I remember then, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but like your Instagram profile was only around 300,000-400,000. It seems to have like doubled, or like I hadn't really kind of been checking in on you as much until we kind of created a hit list for this show. Then I came back and checked your profile. I was like, what? Like, is 1.2 mil or something like that. I'm like, what happened there? But it makes sense with what you said.
Here's another, Maria, I know you asked me a question. We'll get to that in a minute, but
yeah, no problem.
I never get to talk about the business aspect of things. And I feel like I've become a very good businessman through good workout, Tori. My house is like a Airbnb, like their bedrooms and people stay here. They lift in my garage. So, but anyway, so one thing I've tried to do is focus on like attracting the right followers too. So I have I train all these women, and some of them will be like, look, I have 80,000 followers, and they only post half naked selfies, which is fine if you have a side job. If you're actually trying to be a business person, it's funny. I'll be like, how many of your followers are men? They're like, I don't want to tell you. I'm like, show me right now. 90%. I'm like, okay, so you basically have 10%. You have 80,000 followers, but you really have 8,000 customers. because those men are just looking at your pictures. They're not going to buy a product from you or anything like that. So I've gotten some of my squad members to focus on education, and it's hard because at first they post something about working out and they get like no likes, and it's embarrassing because those 90% they just want a picture of you.
Yeah.
But over time it pays off. So my followers are 76% women, 24% men, but they're customers. I'm not I'm a decent looking guy, but I'm not eye candy. I'm not shredded. They're not there to ogle my physique. They're there to learn something new. And
they're there for the knowledge.
They are true customers.
Yes.
And so I sit there and I have this metric, like, I don't know if this is, I took economics in college, but like how much money you make profit per year off of per follower. Because I have this friend who has 1 million followers and she makes $100,000 a year. So she makes 10 cents a follower. And, and here I make $5 per follower profit.
Yeah.
So that's your goal, should be your goal, to increase your profit per follower. Well, how do you do that? Focus on educating people. And I don't see people doing that. And I sometimes I think I should come out with business courses or something, but I'm like, I'm so busy, I'm spread so thin. But I just see people spinning their wheels and they don't know how to do it the right way.
Well, I think you see it a lot. Like you see, accounts that might have, 100,000 or 200, 300,000 followers, and they're unable to monetize it. And then you see, much smaller accounts that might only have 50,000, but they're actually able to create a 6 or even a 7-figure business from that. And I think the key.
Back in the day, we had this is back, remember in the blogging era when everyone was doing affiliate marketing? I always hated that so bad. It made me feel like a sleazy. But my colleague Eric Cressy, he would launch his product show and go or whatever, and like he'd have contests like whoever sold the most books would win an extra $1,000 or something. And I remember this guy Mike Reinhold, he was the physical therapist for the Boston Red Sox back in the day, and he beat us all. And he had like his list was like 15,000 people, and some of the guys had lists of 100,000 people, like their newsletter list.
Well, I see. Yeah,
because his people cared about that stuff. He had the right. That taught me a good lesson way back then. Focus on getting customers. Don't just focus on followers. Focus on the right followers who are actually interested in your what you have to say and is interested in what you have to sell.
Right.
No, definitely.
Yeah. So
the glute. How I got the glute niche.
Yeah. How did you get to? And you're kind of touching base on that by talking.
You got to zap me every once in a while and like shock me back to get me back on track. Okay, so glute niche.
No worries.
I never had glutes growing up, so my back went right into my legs, And I remember in high school hearing a couple of girls whom I had a crush on, and they were like, "Let's go watch the football players after school. I love looking at them, their butts in their football uniforms." And I'm like, "Oh man, like if this is important, if glutes are important, I'm going to be like a 40-year-old virgin, So I needed to learn how to train my glutes.
Right.
And I didn't know how. Like back then, Dane, even now, have you ever seen a bodybuilding magazine say like Glute Day for men? No. It's weird.
It literally like there were, like back in, I'd say the noughties, you had a few coaches that might touch base on it as like accessories, the Poliquins, the Cressies and stuff like that. But no one really kind of, we all knew
bodybuilding coaches. Those were, they were strength coaches.
Yeah.
Those were performance people. The bodybuilders would just be like, we have leg day. You have quads, you have hammies. You don't ever mention glutes.
Yeah.
The glutes
I think a lot of it is because coming from an SNC background, like me, myself, like you look at the glutes and the posterior chain as something that can create power and force and strength and everything that goes with it. You're looking at it from an athleticism standpoint too. Whereas I think, that's something that this standard PT or bodybuilder, they're not looking at it in that context. So any athletic trainer knows that they need to build a strong posterior chain for whatever sport, for majority of sports. So I think it's probably natural that it came out of the SNC field with you in many respects when you put it in that context.
But I growing up trying to learn about glutes, I was like, they never talked about glute day. Here's what I do for my glutes. It was like, because like back at Vince Gironda was the one who was like, you don't want glutes. You want to minimize your glute development. He was the Iron Guru from like he was popular in the 60s. He trained like Clint Eastwood and all these celebrities, but he would have people do hack squats because they did not want to get too big glutes.
The 8x8 method.
And the 10-8-6-15, and like but I think it has carried on, and it's weird. To this day, you don't see bodybuilding magazines talk about glutes. It's leg day. What do you do for quads? What do you do for hammies? No one talks about what they do for glutes. And I've seen, but I think when you're taking like a ton of steroids, some muscles just tend to get big anyway. A lot of bodybuilders don't even train their traps, and they're huge. I think if you do a ton of steroids and do squats and stiff leg deadlifts, your glutes get huge. But if you're an average person who struggles with developing glutes, you got to do hip thrusts. You got to throw in some abduction. You got to do more than that. You can't just rely on squats and deads. You can't rely on training quads and hammies to build your glutes up.
Yeah, I know. I was going to say how like even on social media, the people who are performing hip thrusts without, we're not going to talk about you because we see you do the hip thrusts. You very rarely see a big, strong dude, repping out hip thrusts. Now we get to see it a little bit more. But when it first started out, very rarely were you seeing guys performing hip thrusts. And it was kind of like a girl exercise. But here we have a man like you who is introducing this as a fundamental for building strong glutes. And I think it really, I've seen a shift even within the gym scene, seeing guys doing hip thrusts, no shame in the game. It works. So it's like there should be no shame around an exercise like that. But it used to be like that.
Well, it's funny because I feel like, all right, my twin brother, I have an identical twin, and one day he's like, Bret, you need to join Instagram. And I go, Joel, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm in this. I hate social media. I hate it. I never had a cell phone until I was 28 years old. I just hate being so accessible. I feel guilty. Every day not getting back to more people. But it's like I got to a point before the quarantine where I was doing 5 hours a night. I can't keep responding to every DM, but I feel horrible thinking someone's reaching out to me and I can't. But I also just hate the negativity and the like the cancel culture, the trolls, you could post like, I'm out like rescuing like, doing something admirable, and you'd get 1/3 of people would be like, really? Like I criticize the manner in which you do it. It's just I don't like seeing it. It's a different world. Dane, you and I come from an era where
trust me, I could do a whole podcast interview just on this. Like you give credit where credit's due.
Give credit where credit's due. You don't talk smack or you get your jaw broken. These kids now, they're just so disrespectful, and also the jealousy. And I feel like I get more jealousy than anyone in the industry because I'm the only one who invented an exercise that got super popular ever. And I think it's because I'm tall, and also like I'm surrounded by women all day long. So I think I'm this. I don't think
and probably the beard too. But question on that.
Real quick, because Maria, you were talking about this. So I was getting annoyed with Facebook because I feel like I spent so much time and energy building up my Facebook back in the day. I had 110,000 followers back when no one had 100,000. And all of a sudden they switched the algorithms. And I was so mad because I'm like, I'm a scientist and I'm a scientist. I think what Facebook did was so deplorable. They switched the algorithms. Like you watch that movie Social Network and Mark Zuckerberg's like, oh, it's bigger than that. And then he sold out and became all about money. Yeah. He did the biggest disservice to the world by switching, and you go public and then all you care about is profit. So scientists and PhDs like me, you clipped our wings. We had power. We had power back then. If someone was promoting pseudoscience, we could post a blog post saying this is BS, don't believe it. It would go viral, and we could combat the charlatans. Now all of a sudden they changed the algorithms and it favored the charlatans. We'd make a post, it used to get 3,000 likes and 100 shares, and now it gets 500 likes and 10 shares, and
Yeah.
Well, Facebook really has just. I was going to say Facebook really just has become pay to play.
Yeah.
And
like
the scientists aren't gonna pay for things. It's pride. We're not marketers. We're not gonna pay our money. We're not gonna learn how to promote this post. It's the marketers who do that. So they contributed to the that, and also with their algorithms. I don't know if you watched the movie The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And I'm sure some of that's overhyped, but like I do feel like they contributed to making the world a worse place. Now, don't get me wrong. I love like Google has these algorithms and they've figured out what I like. I go to sleep every night. Can't wait to go read. That's how I follow up on the world. I've got tons of science stuff on there, even like quantum physics that I like and historical things that I like. But I love reading this stuff. But I like those algorithms. But I feel like back then they clipped my wings, so I was bitter. I was the first strength coach. Like I had the most popular blog out of all the strength coaches with my Alexa ranking. That was important to me. I threw it all aside. I quit Facebook, I quit YouTube, I quit Twitter, and I quit blogging, and I quit sending out newsletters, and I went all in on Instagram. I'm like, my brother's like, it's the wave of the future. I'm like, how? You can't even link. He's like, just trust me. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to trust him. And my boy, was that a good bet, like a good game. I gambled, and my popularity. So anyway, what happened with the hip thrust was you had Instagram start up, and the strength coaches would try to like join Instagram, and they weren't blowing up. They're used to just like living off their reputation. Instagram didn't care about reputations. You'd have some woman with a nice butt with like 10 million followers, and we were like, I'd have like 5,000 followers like when I started. And I'm like, how do you get to 10 million followers? And this girl would write like, oh my God, I love hip thrusts. Hip thrusts are my favorite glute exercise. And a strength coach would come on and be like, hip thrusts are stupid, just squat. And she'd go, I've squatted for years, you effing idiot. It never did anything for my glutes. Hip thrusts work better. And that would get like 500 likes in his comment, and everyone would rip on that guy. It shut the men up. The men, there were so many male haters that hated hip thrusts just because they were jealous. If these guys actually did hip thrusts the way I do them, I train big, strong dudes. Their glutes burn so bad. They're like, Bret, help me up. Get this bar off of me. Help me up, because their glutes are so
I literally today, Bret, I filmed this glute finisher in honor of our podcast today. And in my video, my glutes literally went in knots and it cramped up so bad. And I'm like, you know how much growth we can see even in men? I mean, I'm speaking for the ladies here. You like the glutes. Don't neglect the glutes. The glutes are...
But I think...
the part for hip thrust, though, is when Instagram, all these women were so much more popular than the male authorities. And the tides turned, and all of a sudden the women have the authority, at least on Instagram. And no one cares about what this angry strength coach has to say who's lost in the 90s. So that's when hip thrust started blowing up worldwide. And it was cool to witness, because I feel like that really helped increase the popularity of hip thrust and glute training in general. And it was fun for me. And then you mentioned how guys weren't doing it. One day I'm like just waking up and like I'm getting all these DMs coming in like, oh my God, check it out. And it's The Rock. The fucking Rock doing hip thrusts. Am I allowed to swear on here?
Yeah, go for it. It's fine.
The Rock is doing hip thrusts. I'm like, I feel like I died and went to heaven. I'm like, yes. And then like James Harrison, the football player, was doing hip thrusts. You can't have two manlier guys than James Harrison and The Rock. So what are guys going to say? Like, ooh, hip thrusts are sissy exercise. And these two guys could beat the living crap out of you, and they're happily doing hip thrusts. So I feel like that's when it's like, okay, this is legit. This is a legit exercise. And then The Rock made several posts of him doing hip thrusts. But you still see it to this day, some serious hate on hip thrusts. And a fake study came out last year. It was a fake study. It got spread. It was saying squats are better for glute development than hip thrusts.
I remember this.
Remember that? And I'm like, I read it and I go, there's no way in hell. First of all, I know this as a trainer, but I looked at the results, and it was the silliest study I've ever seen. If you actually, and it's funny because half of my colleagues posted it, and they're like, I mean, I hate to tell you, I said this all along, and they were wrong. So it came out that these statisticians looked at it and said the chances of this all happening is like 1 in 3 million. This is 1 in 30 million. This is 1 in 150 million. It's not just that study. It's their whole body of work is fabricated. They've been They've been
God.
disgraced as researchers. All their stuff's getting retracted one by one. They make up these studies that never occurred. And you would know this if you train people because, Maria, let's say you took, 10 girls and you had them squat and hip thrust. The
Oh,
girls, and they were already like, advanced lifters. Their squat in 10 weeks might go up
oh
40
yeah.
pounds.
Yeah.
Their hip thrust will go up like 150 pounds.
Even with myself,
Yeah.
like I
The way it
barely
works.
squat as much just because of that. I just can't. I'm really bad at squatting, like free weight barbell squatting. I do it once in a while, different variations of it, but it's with hip thrust. I was able to progress. I could never squat 4.5 plates, but I could hip thrust 4.5 plates. Like that's awesome, and I
Yeah.
think that progression was just more feasible with a hip thrust than a squat. And I was told when I was growing up, entering the fitness industry young, squat for glutes, ass to grass, all of this stuff, and it's like that wasn't working for me. I just didn't feel it anywhere where I was
But
supposed
the
to
strength
be.
coach was like, well, you just don't know how to squat. That's what
Yeah.
they always, you just don't know how to
Yeah.
squat.
Lower, ass to the grass. That's what I was
Yeah.
told
Well,
since I was
let's talk about that.
yeah.
For a lot of our audience that are trainers, right, listening to this, and they might not have been doing much glute work or glutes, specificity work with their clients. Like, do you have a particular process that you kind of go through when someone comes to you, like a beginning client, in terms of maybe the types of glute exercise variations you might deploy, the rep ranges, the rest periods, the level of intensity? Like, give us a little bit of a talk on the actual exercises themselves and how you apply them.
So like, when you put something out to the public, you systematize things.
Yeah.
Like you come up with a system, and coming out with books and programs has helped me systematize things very well.
It's
When
like
I get a
the
client,
80-20 principle, right? Like the system will work for 80%, 90% of the people that do it, and then you'll have the outliers that it just won't work for. But you need to have a process.
when I get clients, I get clients all the time, and I train them. I haven't charged a client in 6 years. I love helping people. I love training people, and I just love. When I was a high school math teacher, I didn't make any money. When you get free stuff, you're like, yes. I just train people for free.
Wow. Okay.
I have people visit all the time. I look at it like I'm helping give them a free session or a free training. I train like, probably 40 people right now, all for free. I love it.
Wow.
But they help me sharpen my
Wow.
saw. They're helping me. How am I going to be the world's glute expert? How am I going to maximize my knowledge of hypertrophy and strength training if I'm not working with lots of people? And you can work with a lot more people if you're free. So anyway, I have my regular clients who come to me regularly, and then I have my people who just stop in. So let's say I get someone who stops in. They're usually very advanced because, like Maria, you would want to, if you came to Vegas or San Diego and I was in town, you'd be like, hey, can I come train with you? So I'll
I'm
train
gonna
that
hold you to
person.
it. I'm gonna
I love it. I love it because I can always teach. Even the most advanced people, I can always teach you something, and you'll think back that you're like, God, that was so helpful. And I pride myself on providing value to people. Even my girls, some of them right now are so freaking strong. I have to stay one step ahead. The way I stay one step ahead of them is threefold. I have to be lifting weights myself. I have to walk the walk. I'm 45, still setting PRs. And that means a lot to me. I'm still training really hard, and I'm slowing down a bit, but that means I got to train smarter. Then I got to keep training tons of people, and then I got to read, and I read research every single night, and I still email researchers. I'm friends with some of the top scientists, and that's very important. You got to do all three. You have lots of coaches who lift, the biggest dudes in the world, they just lift. So they're limited in knowledge. They know a lot of what works for them. Then you got a lot of people who train a lot of people, and they know a lot about training, but they don't know the science, so they're limited as well. Then you have a lot of scientists who are so smart with the research, but they don't have practical insight. You corner them.
I talk about this all the time. Like, I think one of the things, like I had gyms myself. We did over 250,000 appointments through our gyms, right? Like, that's a lot of PT sessions, and like, we obviously teach education around the world now, and I say our point of difference compared to an NASM or an ISSA or something like that, who we have relationships with as well, is that like our education methodologies were built in the trenches. along with in the lab, right? So you need to be able to blend both. It's all well and good to have the degrees and the academic knowledge, but if you're not in the trenches applying it, like I love that you're still coaching. I love that you're getting in there, you're hands-on, you're cueing, you're moving, because like they're variables that you cannot teach in an online guidebook, an online course, that you just can't.
Oh, funny, Dane. One of my idols is Louis Simmons. I've learned so much from
Yeah.
him, and
I never made it out to his gym, like, but
neither.
one time when the borders opened back up.
Yep, same. But we watched that documentary, and my clients are like, they all watch the documentary and they're like, "You're like Louis Simmons. You're never satisfied with us." And I'm like, "Cause he's like, they could have been stronger." But he's like, he'll be training people till he dies. That's how I am. I'll be in a cane helping people still, and be like, "You gotta hip thrust higher. You're not locking out." So like, it's just in my blood. If I won the lottery and won $150 million tomorrow, my life wouldn't change that much. I found what I love. I'd be doing what I love. I'd be doing the same exact thing. I just maybe have I'd have a nicer home gym. I'd have nicer things, but I would be doing the same exact daily regimen. So anyway, we were talking about my system.
Yeah.
I don't have, like, when I work with people, it's so loosey goosey. It's like, "Hey, Maria, what do you want to do today?" "I don't know. What do you want me to do? You want a technical session where I watch you do squats, deadlifts, hip thrusts, back extensions, like Bulgarian split squats, where you want me to watch your form on everything and make sure you're doing it right? Or do you want me to put you through a hard workout? Or do you want to try all the new equipment that I have that you've probably never used before and test out the goodies?" And they'll go, kind of like all three. And I'm like, "Okay, I get it." Those are like the walk-in people, the one-timers. If it's a newbie who doesn't lift weights, then my process is, okay, I never liked screens, because it's like, I don't need to screen people. I'm going to go, "All right, let me see you do this box squat. Sit down on this box." Okay, I tweak some things. All right. And okay, I'm going to drop the box down. And I'm always complimenting as a trainer. Don't ever tell them you have this syndrome. Don't ever criticize, pass down on them. I am a strength coach. I strengthen people's minds, bodies, and spirits. I have no time for casting doubt on them. I don't want to press them with my knowledge of dysfunction. If I'm a general of an army and I'm like barking out orders, I'm not going to be like, "Let's go out there. You guys on the front line, Dane, you've got your anterior pelvic tilt. Let's face it, you're probably going to get killed. Maria, you've got that leg discrepancy. Just try to kill one person before you get taken out." I'm going to be like focusing on your strengths. I'm going to be empowering you guys. I'm going to be charging you up. That's what I do as a coach. I will never, they'll come to me and say, "I'm just letting you know, I've got a glute imbalance. My glutes don't activate. I've got this, I've got that." And I'm like, "I know you were told that in the past, and I promise you, you are strong, you are fit. In the next 3 months with me, you are going to get stronger than your wildest imagination. Just do what I tell you to do and stay consistent, and I promise I will get you strong." Then I will compliment them. "Wow, you have good squat form," or "Wow, I'll find an exercise that they're good at," and then I'll film them and like tag them, like make them feel special. And then, I'll find where they stand on what I call the movement pattern continuum. Every exercise, you got your squat pattern. The easiest is a bodyweight box squat, bodyweight high box squat. You have to start really obese people there and really frail older people there. They can't even maybe get to parallel, but they're doing it. They're doing a squat. And then you reduce the height. You drop the height, you add load in the goblet position. Then all of a sudden they're doing deep box squats with a 30-pound dumbbell, and you're like, "I'm going to move them to a high bar. Now I'm going to remove the box. Now I'm going to give them front squats. Now I'm going to do this." And so that's what I do with every exercise. I've got my system. But anyway, I've also got a lot of freedom within that, because I want them to enjoy the session. The first few sessions, I'm trying to win them over, so that over time they become your little soldiers who will listen to everything you say. You just give them some results, meet them in the middle, and help them have a good time and build confidence. And so
I have a question for you on that. Have you found, like, over your career now, that you've probably become less dogmatic as you've experienced more. And so a lot of what you do now has become less textbook but more intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely. And and I think
Yeah.
that's probably
Yeah.
with every expert gets, and even with like writing too. I remember before I got my PhD, I wanted people to think I was smart. I look back at my old writing and I laugh. I'm like, oh my God, like who can even understand this? I'm like,
Yeah.
the hip thrust exhibits an increasing hip extension torque angle curve as you move from, like, and
Yeah.
I'm like,
What fucking language is that? Like, yeah.
I wanted people to think I was smart. Now I'm like, okay, how can I? Because when you're on Instagram, you're like, everyone's going to misinterpret this.
Yeah.
People aren't going to read it. How can I make this as simple as possible? And I'm always rewriting things to be the easiest way you can possibly explain it. And then with my training, that's how you can tell the sign of an experienced trainer. They don't speak in absolutes. They don't make black and white statements.
Yes.
Because I'll make these like everyone should be squatting, be able to do a narrow squat. People should put their feet forward. I'm like, what? That hurts people's knees. Like everyone should do sumo stance. No, that hurts some people's hips. Like the squat stance. Now, ideally, you can do a variety of squat stances. Everyone should be able to do sumo and conventional squats, deadlifts, things like that. And you should do variety in your training, but you will always have an ideal stance and setup based on your anatomy. And you can't just look at someone too. I've tried this my whole life. Trust me, I'm a biomechanist. I love biomechanics. I want to look at you and go, Dane, you're a conventional deadlifter. Maria, I think you're a sumo puller. No, you're wrong a lot. You can't just look at someone because you can look at limb lengths and arm length and torso, like I call it your lightning bolt, your torso, femur, tibia, and you can try to predict, but that doesn't mean they might have deep hip sockets. They might have certain thing where when they turn out it hurts, or they might have something where it just doesn't feel right. So you don't know what their soft tissue, what their attachment points are, and their joints, centers and things like that. So you can't always predict things. You got to learn through experimentation. And when I hear these black and white statements in my mind, I go, well, that would be true for, Masa and for Ashley, but for Kiana and Bree, that would hurt them. This person doesn't really train people. They're fake internet trainers. They're phony trainers. They sit on their keyboard and they type things and they pretend to be working with people, but they don't. That's why they're popular. They spend all their day online writing things and making infographics, acting like they have expertise, but they don't really. They don't know what they're talking about.
And I think like, exercise selection and recommendations too, for a lot of people will change as they get older.
Right.
Like I'm sure for you, Brett, like similar to myself, like, 10 years ago, the way that I would train, very, I don't know, 90% compound lifts, 10% machines. Now it's like, maybe 60, 70% machines, 30, 40% compound, because like, fuck, I just don't recover the same anymore.
I don't recover the same anymore. I'm training. So I thought this 17-year-old kid, I started going to EOS, which is right down the street from me because I'm in Vegas and it's hot. I've got this 4-car garage gym here. I still have my gym in San Diego. That's an 1,800 square foot gym, but I've got 1,000 square foot 4-car garage gym here. And it's fine. I have an air conditioning unit, but when it gets to 118 degrees here in Vegas, it's too hot. So I joined EOS and I'm sitting there and I see these kids lifting weights. And then I'm like, they're pulling 1 rep max deadlifts. And one of the kids stands out. He's 17 years old, pulling 600 pounds.
Wow.
So I was like, I approached him at the gym and I'm like, I struck up conversation. I'm like, have you ever pulled with a deadlift bar? Have you ever tried sumo? Do you have deadlift socks? Do you have this? Do you have, you ever tried deadlifting without the straps, without the wrist straps? And he's like, I've never done any of that. I'm like, you ever done hip thrust? Because your lockout is so weak.
Oh man.
Yeah. And he's like, he's got these huge giant legs and then tiny glutes. And I'm like, I think I could help you. So I've been training him for like 3 weeks now. Cool. And he already is PRing on everything, using my same system, the strong lifting system that I use with girls. It works on everyone. It works on the strongest of men. It works on everyone. And I'm giving him the same system and I love it because I wish someone, I just thought to myself, I wish so bad someone would have done this to me when I
Exactly.
was
Yeah.
17 years old. I would have fast forwarded. So
Yeah.
like, I didn't know about progressions and regressions back in the day. So if I couldn't do a chin up, I just wouldn't do them.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could crawl to the top and do an eccentric. I didn't know we didn't
Yeah.
have bands back then to do
Yeah.
band assisted. Those weren't at gyms.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't do dips. I wouldn't do chin ups. I wouldn't do squats. Just didn't do any of the
Yeah.
good exercise because I couldn't do them right. And I could have been so much far forward if had I known then what I know now. So I'm trying to teach this kid everything I can. But I'm trying to do his program, and I'm like, the guy was doing squats one day, bench the next day, deadlifts the next day, then right back into it. So he'd do like his program would be like 8 sets of squats, then the next day 8 sets of bench, then the next day 8 sets of deadlifts, then the day after deadlifts 8 sets of squats again. So I've got him doing an extra day of upper body in there. I have him doing military press day, but I have him doing more exercise, and he's doing hip thrust now. He had never done 45-degree hypers. He never did single leg stuff. He's never hit lunges or Bulgarian split squats hard. He's never done so much stuff. I'm having to do grip work so he doesn't have to wear straps anymore, and teaching him the ropes, and he's already setting PRs. He's crushing it. And this guy, the kid's 17, weighs 215 pounds, and he's squatting 535, deadlifting 600. I bet you I can get him to deadlift 700 pounds if I work for him for a year. But my whole point is I can't recover like him. And I've just realized I can't train with him. It's sad. I can't recover. I go to lift. I go to try his, I'm trying to keep up with him, and I can't do it. So I'd be an idiot to try his program. So I'm like you, Dane. I do more machines and more, like pause reps, more.
More paused reps, more like integrating maybe a bit more hypertrophy work in.
Yeah, more hypertrophy work. I can recover from those. And I can't, it's like how many, when I just pulled 605 for 5 and then 650 for 1. I almost got 675. I got it up so high. I bet you I could have locked it out if I didn't do the 605 for 5 first. But I'm getting to where I would like to deadlift 700 pounds eventually. Now, here's the thing, though. I pull like my deadlift program is 1 rep a week. I rely on squats and hip thrusts and other lifts to build my deadlifts. But if I didn't do the 1 rep of deadlifts, I would not go up much. That's crucial. But that 1 rep is brutal. Or sorry, it's 1 set. So it might be a heavy single, or it might be a set of 5. It might be a set of 3. But basically, I warm up and I feel out what 405 and 495 feel like. And then I go, okay, I'm feeling good today. I'm going to go for something big. Or it didn't go up fast. I'm not feeling as good. But I do that 1 hard set, and that beats me up, kicks the crap out of me. And I can only do 1 set a week. But I
remember having chats with Ed Cohen on this, and like talking and saying like, how often would you max out? And he'd be like, it got to the point with him, like it was once a year. And he'd be doing a lot of he'd obviously do the weekly deadlifts to work on the technical execution of the movement, but the low bar squats, the pause front squats, all of the accessory movements around it were all contributing to increasing his strength to be able to do that. I think a lot of coaches, and we're talking about powerlifting in particular, they get so caught up on that whole thing of specificity, not realizing that you don't need to actually do that lift as much as you think to get it strong.
And that's what I'm trying to impress upon my glute squad, because I think I have the strongest female gym in the world. I'd love to test it. I really do. My girls, and they're all natural too. I would love to do like a tested event. I mean, and think about it, because like, you think of Louis Simmons. He's a freaking legend. I actually think I have the strongest female gym in the entire world, and I would gladly go up against anyone in the world. And here's the thing too. I didn't recruit anyone. I built these girls up over several years of training. I never said, hey, powerlifters, come train with me. These are all girls who started coming to me for glutes, and then they just fell in love with strength training. And now we start doing strong lift. So my strong lifting is basically, it was like me loving hip thrusts, chin-ups, and military press, but also loving the 3 power lifts and saying, look, why can't I form my own event where we do the big 6? Because that's what all my training, and it doesn't matter if you're male, female, advanced, beginner, or if you're training for bikini, it's still the same method. If you're training for strength or for bikini or for physique, I train you the same way. We focus on getting stronger at the big six,
Yeah.
not
And
to
talking,
necessarily just 1 rep maxes. I might focus on higher rep ranges, but I'm trying to get you stronger at these 6 movement patterns, squatting, deadlifting, hip thrusting, chin-ups, military press, and bench press. And I think the addition of those next 3 really helps with the physique, because you could say, well, powerlifters still employ military press, they still employ chin-ups or pull downs, but when it's a tested lift, you push it harder. My girls, we do chin-ups. We don't do wide grip pull downs or pull-ups. We do chin-ups, and when we do pull downs, we do supinated as well. Their lats are so thick. My girls get complimented on their backs just as much as their. And I've got Ashley does a 75-pound chin-up. I've got girls doing 70, 65, 70, 75-pound chin-ups, 45 pounds for 5. Have you ever seen a girl do a plate for 5 reps? That's very rare. They're doing it.
We used to in our gyms, but I think it was applying a very, we were super rare back then as well. Like we had I guess, in many respects, one of the strongest gyms in Australia. We'd have a lot of these 120 pound, 130 pound women doing kind of, 40 pound chin ups and stuff like that. But it was kind of, it was based on a lot of the principles that you're talking about. And I think people get so caught up, like, especially in physique and bodybuilding and bikini. And Maria, I think you're testament to this with your background doing, a lot of powerlifting, then bikini as well, in that to build that type of physique, that aesthetic look, it's like it can't coexist with, training heavy when it can actually really benefit it a lot more.
So that's what I like. Like Maria, you talk about you're active in WBFF. So I've been having my girls compete.
I
More of
saw
them.
that at Worlds. I never knew that you had a lot of your athletes actually be competitors. And how lucky are they to be training with the Glute Guy, building the glutes?
Thank you, but we did strong lifting training.
I saw. I've
And
been
3 of
following
my
some of the
girls won their pro. 3 of my, but the 3, I had 5 competitors at Worlds. 3 of them won their pro card, their very first time competing, and I was so happy because it's a testament to these training methods. This is physique training too. If you do strong lifting,
definitely.
powerlifting's awesome, but then you add in hip thrust, it's going to make your glutes a little bit better. You add in military press, it's going to make your delts a little bit better. You add in chin-ups, it can make your back a little bit better. The squats are all already awesome for quads. Deadlifts are already awesome for hamstrings. They both build the glutes, but hip thrusts add even more to the plate. Bench press is awesome for pecs and shoulders and triceps. Military adds a little more delts to the equation. And then you got the chin-ups for the back and biceps. It's a total body system. And then you just eat well, eat good for your goals. So if you want to be your strongest, if you want to be your absolute strongest, eat a lot and be big. If you want to be your relative strongest or look your best, make sure you're around below 15% body fat, and you might get down depending on if you train, like if you're competing in NPC, IFBB, or WBFF. There's different standards there, but yeah, you got to get lean. But if you're strong and you eat in a deficit, add in some cardio, you look amazing. And it's so much more effective than typical bodybuilding methods where you do body part splits and you're only training legs 1 or 2 days a week and you're spending all this time on upper body muscles. That works well for men, but women, I think, do better when they train the glutes more frequently and do this type of training.
Yeah. And to kind of take things more into terms of talking about the business side of things, we obviously know that you have over 1 million followers on Instagram and social media, and we talked about how you were able to grow that and maximize that growth. But what would be your tips for like our young listeners who are a lot of PTs and people in the industry who are starting off in the industry listen to our podcast? What would be some of your tips on implementing what you did for their growth? I know I also mentioned how, it may seem like there's a huge sea of trainers out there with so much knowledge, but I feel like there's just so many endless people who still need that help and service from people like us, trainers, PTs, people who are educated on these topics and terms. What would be your tips for growing a business like yours?
It's funny. I did a whole NSCA asked me to speak at their national conference 2 years ago and do and talk about social media. It's funny, I'm used to talking about glutes or biomechanics or something with sprinting or something, but no, this was on social media. And I had a lot of people say this was my favorite presentation. I put together an hour-long presentation, but I had a lot of good insight in there. But basically what I told people is find a few people that you really like who have big followings, okay? Get a sense of the type of posts they make. All right, look at what they do. They post like that every day. You think that's easy? Try it. Make one post a day. Make 365 posts a day for a whole year that's as high quality as their posts. You'll quickly realize that these people are elite for a good reason.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy to come out. I look at some people's posts. This is one thing I was teaching my trainers 5 years back. I'm like, how long do you take on, how long do you spend on that caption? 10 minutes, 20 minutes? Yeah, cool. I spent an hour on my caption earlier because I went over the character limit and I had to redo it 3 times to get it under. But what was left is this well-polished thing. You filmed yourself. You had your buddy film you with his iPhone in one take. I had 3 takes, or I use this different camera now, but I had to, I was mic'd up and we had a better lighting on it. We had it in front of the window so we could get the natural lighting or the ring light or something.
Yeah.
Quickly realized that the cream rises to the top. So yeah, try to do what they do. Take your top 3 people, try to mimic them, see how they educate people, see how they do it, and copy their style. Have your own style, but try to do it. Try to think of it like, if you were to if you make a post a day, you're going to win the lottery or something gruesome. Like, your family got captured and they're all going to be executed unless you make a post a day. Would you do it? Yes, you would.
Right here.
You'd make a post a day and all of a sudden, you'd start off going like, gee, I can't gain any traction. I can't gain any. It's one like when I started blogging. Yeah. I made some blogs and then all of a sudden Tony Gentlecore put me on his blog roll. We had blog rolls back in the day where your favorite bloggers. And then people were like, oh, he's on a popular person's blog roll. And then it was, and then I started writing for T Nation and I'm one of their better, I think I was their most popular writer for a while there. Yeah. And then I was like, little by little, people are, and then that's how you gain traction, but you got to keep at it. It's going to be slow moving. And then all of a sudden, like I remember on Instagram, one day, Brittany Parley tagged me with this before and after. She's got like, I don't know, 1 million some followers. And she wrote, before Bret Contreras, after Bret Contreras. I kept looking at my phone going, what? I swear I just went up 1,000. I must be, I must not have slept enough. Wait, I went up another 1,000? I went up like 8,000 or 9,000 followers that day. It was amazing. So, you just got to keep at it. Some things go viral, some things don't, but you keep at it. And then people come to your page. It's like when you get the blue check mark.
Yeah.
And if you get the PhD, you write PhD, people go, oh. So they're more apt to follow you. But yeah, you got to keep at it and be consistent and do what I said. Focus on educating people. So I always tell my people my glute squad and the people I'm trying to help business, because I can help people be stronger, but I can also help them be better business people. So I always, I get people, probably 10 different people who send me their captions and I'll read over it and I'll send them a little voice text. All right, you made this about you. Yeah. Don't make it about you, make it about them. Change it. It's a good post, but you just said, here, me. Make it about them. You might do this, or like, here's what obstacle you might encounter. And then I'll say, make it about them, number one. And then, I'll say, then I'll say, send it back and I'll edit their caption. And I just wordsmith it. And then I say, you take a look at how I wordsmith that. See the words I changed, because it makes a big difference. And they'll be like, wow. So you get better over time with this. But during that year of posting every day, and I told people at the end, I'm like, listen, I just gave you guys all my secrets. I just told you guys everything. And there's probably like 150 people in this room, and maybe one of you will actually rise up to the top. You know why? Because it's freaking hard. It sounds easy. It's freaking hard. I've worked 15 hours a day for 15 years. And people, like, even on Christmas, even on New Year's, even on, I don't go out much. I don't party. I don't do drugs. I don't even drink anymore. I don't drink because I love being productive.
Yeah.
and I love helping people, and it makes me feel good. So, yeah, I'm a machine, and I've built those habits to where I love my field so much, and it's also a mixture of working out, training other people, and reading, and then being active on social media. So it's not too daunting. It's a good blend of things to where I'm not so bored. But anyway, yeah, you do that for a whole year, and you will have a following.
When you were speaking before about like trainers going out there looking at people that they obviously aspire to be like and kind of mimicking them, and I agree. There's a saying I've heard before. It's like success leaves clues,
Yes.
right? And I'm a big believer in that. But like, who out there in today's industry, like different accounts and that, like for a young trainer in their early 20s starting out, like who are some kind of people out there that you'd recommend? Obviously yourself, but who are some other people? Obviously you might not remember them all when you say this, so no one should be offended if your name's not on what Bret says, but like who are some people out there that have got your seal of approval?
Well, here's the deal. My best friends like Brad Schoenfeld, Alan Aragon, Andrew Vygotsky's not even on. He's the smartest dude in the field. He's not even on social media. He was my intern back in the day, and now he's 10 times smarter than me. But I love having him because he checks over my biomechanics, and he's like a idiot savant. He's so smart. But anyway, those guys aren't the best at social media. They don't care that much. They're so like Brad, might have 200,000 followers, but it's through his reputation. I'll tell him
Through his research.
I think you you're so lazy. Your post took you 5 minutes. I'm like, you gotta, but he doesn't care. He's financially happy. He's secure. He just wants to help the world.
Yeah.
So he's not so the people who are the smartest and have the best content who I vouch for are not the people who have the best social medias, but then the people with the best social medias, I'm always like, you can't really say that. Like, so I feel like I've turned into a snob. I'm like, and I don't want to be this curmudgeon as I get older, but I look at everyone's stuff and I'm like, even all these glute experts now, I'm like, I was the only one for like 10 years. I was spoiled. I created the whole niche. There was one glute guy out there, and now there's like 100 of them. And I look at him, I'm like, you don't know, it's like this Richard Feynman. He was this physicist, and he's like, there's this video of him. He's like, I look at all these different sciences, and like, they don't know what it takes to know something, the work involved to really know something. And in physics, you might, like they might do the large, whatever, the hadron colliders that they have, they might do 1,000 experiments, and they have to plot the data just to see a little trend to try to find the existence of some like subatomic particle, like some quark or hadron or fermion or whatever these things are. I don't even know. I just read it. I don't understand it. But anyway, they have to do so much work. So much work is involved to try to know something. And these people, they're well-intentioned, but they're not good enough scientists. They don't know to truly know something. And even me, you just said, what's the best glute exercise? I say hip thrust. I believe that. I would bet on it, but I don't have the data. We need 10 experiments, well conducted. And I don't even trust researchers anymore that well because, like I said, you got the fabrication, there's been like 5 studies.
Well, and then a lot of them are getting, funded or donations from parties that have biased kind of viewpoints towards them too. So
well, there's just the human science. Science is perfect, but humans are not. Humans are flawed, so they screw it up. So anyway, I know you wanted a list of people to follow, and I'm trying to rack my brain, but it's like, I'm trying to think of people who do it well. I know 2 people involved in your world, Lane Norton and Holly Baxter. They inspire me. I'm like, they were just at my house the other day. After Worlds, they came and trained here. And I'm like, you guys inspire me. I'm a busy guy, but you're machines.
Lane, Holly, I think, Bill Campbell. I mean, these, I think they all put out great content. And
Bill, by the way, Bill was I talked to Bill. He's a scientist, and it's almost like you feel guilty for going out like the science world wants to keep you, I heard all these scientists saying, well, Brett's a blogger. Yeah, he might have his PhD, but he's not a real scientist. Like I've published 52 studies.
Yeah.
Granted, a lot of that's the help of my friends. They do a lot of the work, but their vision of science is just conducting,
Yeah.
randomized
Oh, look,
control.
that's what Bill does. Yeah.
To me, science is the three things I talked about: training yourself, training others, and reading the research and conducting experiments. And one without the other is incomplete. So it's funny because they would think of me as not a good scientist, and I think of them as not a good scientist. I spend more time in my field than you do, and you can't learn through reading. I mean, think about this. I always tell people this, Dane. If Dane, you're 20 years old and you want to do a powerlifting contest, and you're trying to, you're say, look, in 6 months I'm going to compete at this meet, and you can do two options. One, read everything there is to know about powerlifting and try to implement the advice on your own, or two, join a badass powerlifting gym and just do what these bros tell you to do. Well, you do what the bros tell you to do.
Yeah.
You're going to put 300 pounds on your total in 6 months. You read the research, you're going to put 50 pounds on your total. One is going to be a lot more effective than others.
And I think that's with at least like with Lane and Bill in particular, Bill works in academia, right? Like that's his full-time job. So, I mean, I think it's a rarity for a lot of people like that. Like it's his full-time job, but he's still actually practically applying it in the lab with his students and is very hands-on with it as well. Like
the other thing, Dane, okay, think of all the people we just mentioned. Brad Schoenfeld is a bro deep down. He has his PhD. He's the world's leading expert in muscle hypertrophy, but it all stemmed from him wanting to know answers because he's a bodybuilder himself back in the day.
Yeah.
And Aragon works out all the time. He wants to better his physique too, and he has bettered it in the last couple of years. Me, I want to be stronger and more jacked. Bill Campbell was a competitor back in the day.
Yeah.
And he has this drive he still does experiments on himself. Lane is the epitome of
Lane's a machine.
Testing himself. And so all the people we've talked about stemmed from this desire. Like me, I talked about earlier how some guy who man or woman who just has amazing glutes, who have great genetics for glutes, they don't become the world's expert in glutes. Someone like me becomes the world's expert in glutes because I had none. I had to learn everything possible to get some glutes. And I still don't have amazing glutes, but they're so much better than when I started. Now I get complimented on it, and I'm like, yes, because I used to go straight down. So that's that drive to know more, to learn, that curiosity, that is so important for like your quest for understanding. It usually you become an expert through that drive to better your own training. Like this 17-year-old kid I'm working with right now, he's so freaking curious. He cares so much about his strength, and he's just a sponge, and he soaks up everything I tell him. That's what drives knowledge, is that desire. I got my PhD. I knew I wasn't going to be a research professor. I just wanted to know the answer to my questions about like what makes squats and hip thrusts, how are they different? Which would theoretically be better? I looked at all sorts of things. I tested the force plate, like, acute data, mechanistic data, like force plate stuff and EMG and stuff like that, looking at estimating joint torques and things like that. And then that helps you make predictions. But another Richard Feynman quote was, if theories don't match experiments, it's wrong. It doesn't matter how eloquent the theory, it doesn't matter how logical it is, how beautiful it sounds. If it doesn't match experiments, it's wrong.
Yeah.
So you need to have actual longitudinal studies, randomized controlled trials, and ideally you'd have like 10 of them. Then you'd be able to confidently say hip thrusts are better for glutes than squats, and you'd have it high quality studies using MRI, using a variety of protocols on a variety of populations. Unfortunately, we don't have that. That's why it's the wild, wild west out there in strength and conditioning, because it's not a well-researched field. It's not a well-funded field. They fund obesity research, cancer research. These are things that really matter.
Yeah.
It's not that important to look more jacked or be stronger. So a lot of the researchers move into like cancer research so
Yeah.
they can get the funding, but it's like strength training for cancer. And then you try to have like a cancer group and a control group. You want both. You're interested in both, but you're really kind of more interested in the control group because they're the healthy populations, but they're little tricks that researchers use to try to get funding, because unfortunately we're limited by what we, the funding we have.
And Bret, to kind of like tie in towards the end of our podcast, we can't not talk about your range of products. I actually have the bench that you have for hip thrusting, and I purchased for my gym where I work at now. You're set up for the hip thrust and the bar and the plates. We have that hookup at my gym. But let's talk a little bit more about that equipment. And Australia right now, unfortunately, is in lockdown, and a lot of people are training from home. What would be like the top 3 items you would recommend people to have when training glutes from home? And secondly, can you tell us a little bit more about your range of products and how they came to be? How did you decide I need to make my own products?
So, okay, starting out, I wish I could have this tree of my income streams, because, I have like 30 income streams right now, but I didn't start out that way. What I did when I started was, this was when the housing market collapsed, and I'm like, my gym, my whole plaza went under. So when I started, it was like, all right, how can I make money? How can I make money when, like, I want to be blogging, but I can't just blog for free. I got to make a living. So what I did was, I was like, sorry guys. What I did was I made an ebook. Now I look back at that ebook from 2000 I wrote it in 2008, and I'm embarrassed about it. You should be very embarrassed about things from 13 years ago. But anyway, I launched that ebook, and that was my only moneymaker. And, I made $8,000 the first month, and then like $3,000 a month thereafter for 8 straight years off this ebook. I never promoted it. I never plugged it. It was just in the corner of my blog. Probably 2 years in, I'm like, I need to make more money. I started hearing all of my colleagues making more money. So I started coaching. And I hated the coaching, though. I hated all the questions they asked. And it's like, oh my God, you have this things to do list that you want to get done, and you wake up to a million questions about things that are like, so then you try to have this FAQ that gets every answer, and they don't read the FAQ. But I loved writing the programs, okay? This comes into play later. So then I remember starting with my friends Kelly and Marianne, we started Get Glutes. And that was great, but we only made we were only making a couple thousand a month each from that. It didn't blow up the way I thought it would. And then I started the research review with Chris Beardsley, and that, I was only pulling in a couple thousand from that too. So these were, I was making a comfortable living. And then I started selling the hip thruster, and that was my one physical product for a while. Okay. Then I started doing, how was I making good money? Yeah. Okay. So then I started up my own Strong by, okay, this is great. I read this book back in the day by, it's called E-Myth.
I know that. I've read it.
God,
yeah, it's a author. Yeah, I can't. It's a red book.
It's from the 70s, and E didn't stand for like E stood for entrepreneurial myth. It was like this book from this Michael Gerber, and the only reason I read it is because Dave Tate from Elite FTS swore by it. So I read this book, and it was like all about this. E-Myth was, if you might be great at personal training, that doesn't mean you're going to be good at running a gym.
Yeah.
They two don't necessarily, and it's this trap that every entrepreneur gets themselves into. Dane, you're a personal trainer. You're great at what you do. You start taking on more clients. You're the talk of the town. Oh my God, you should train with Dane. He's amazing. And you charge $100 an hour, and you can only work, how many hours a week can you work as a trainer?
Yeah.
You need a day off. You train 6 days, 10 hours a day, 10 sessions a day, $100. You're making $1,000 a day.
I did
a week.
Yeah, I did 55, 60 sessions a week for a decade.
Yeah. So you do that, and then, but all you can make, and this sounds bad, like this is going to make me sound bad, but you're topped out at about $300,000 a year that way. So if you
Yeah.
just make your money as a personal trainer, and you're the best of the best, you could make 300 grand. Here's the deal though. You have to start turning people away eventually. You're the best. You have people coming to you. You want to help everyone. You can't. So all of a sudden you're like, I don't know. I want to train. Sorry, I have a waiting list. But then you're like, okay, I need to train some people and form a gym. I need to open up a gym and I can train my trainers, but you have no time to train those trainers. You are too busy, and you have all this knowledge in your head, but you never systematized it, whatever. And so it's that's the E-myth. And they use this example of a pie maker, and she makes the best pies, but she gets so busy and swamped. You are too busy working in the system to work on the system.
Right.
You're so busy being the trainer, you can't work on the business. And so that was me. But when I finished my PhD, that's when things changed for me. I sat down on my incline bench in my gym, in my garage gym in Phoenix. I remember kicking back and I go, I just submitted my thesis yesterday. I have not given one thought to my business. What makes me special? So I just went through all my revenue streams that weren't making me that much money.
Yeah.
People thought I'd be this multi-millionaire off the hip thruster because I patented the hip. I patented the device that you hip thrust off of. That never made me rich. What was ironic is I said, what makes me special? People love my Instagram. They love my gym. I got this badass garage gym. It was voted one of the top 20 gyms in men's health in the US. Like,
That's cool.
they love this little gym. I bet people would come here and watch seminars. And I bet, and this is funny the way things work, Dane, I'm sure you can relate. I never know what the hell I'm doing.
I'm listening. I'm listening to your story right now. I'm like, check. Like I went through the same journey, just different way.
Yeah. I never knew what the hell I'm doing, but I'm a doer. There's talkers and there's doers. So how do I start seminars? What do I need? Okay. I bought 20 chairs off Amazon, and I bought a projector and one of those screens, and I had my dad help me. We were like, where should we put it? Let's put it here. We hung it up, and I launched my first seminar, and I had 20 people show up. I charged $400. Now I'm making $8,000 a month extra that I wasn't making before on these seminars that I do once a month.
Yeah.
So that increased my income $8,000 a month. Then I said, I think people would want to do these workouts that I'm having my squad do. So I just started giving offering the same workouts that I give my squad, because people like the way they're training. They like doing the workouts, but I just made it strong by Bret. Well, I launched that, and quickly I'm making another 12 grand a month from that. So now I'm making $20,000 more than I was a month than I was before. That's $240,000 extra a year. Now I'm, for the first time in my life, making decent money. So I went, oh my God, I think I can move to San Diego. I hate Phoenix. It's so hot. I hate it. I've wanted to get out of here forever.
You didn't like Scottsdale? Scottsdale's nice.
It's beautiful. I love the night scene, but I'm old now. In my 20s, I loved it. We have this night scene, and fall and spring and winter are beautiful, but the summers are hell. We get up to 122 degrees, 123. It's horrible.
Jeez.
There was a couple of years ago, there was 58 days above 115 degrees. Like, it's just miserable. So I wanted to get out of there. I moved to San Diego, and I'm like, I'm not funny. This is hilarious. I'm going to go to the beach every day. I'm going to learn to relax in life. I've earned it. I'm 40 years old. I can live the good life. I'm going to go to the beach every day, and I'm not opening up a gym. I'm not getting sucked in. And then I start going to the gyms out there. I'm like, God, these gyms suck. And it's not good for my brand, because I'm shoulder tapping people going, hey, can you film this? Can you film me doing a set of lat pull downs? And they're so bad at taking videos. They angle it up, and I'm in the corner, and then there's this ceiling above, or some person in the background doing one arm rows with the worst posture ever.
Oh, God,
and I'm like, yeah, I don't want that in the background of my videos. So I was like, you know what? I need to open up my own gym. So I opened up Glute Lab, and I started training Brianna and Masa. They were my first two girls that I started training. And they're just, they've got the physiques. They've got the right look. Masa, everyone knew her. She trained at the gym, the most popular gym in San Diego. Everyone knew her. They start training with me. I blew up. And that's when
I think just on that point there, it does make a big difference. You can have the skill and knowledge, but if you can lasso one or two kind of star clients that can really give you a platform to, for us, or for me as a coach, it was Lauren Simpson, right?
Yeah.
and like getting her pro card into the world championships, it really helped kind of put clean health and our brand even more on the map, just from having that one or two kind of big key profile clients.
Yeah.
So I think it was like, whoa, Glute Guy's not in his garage anymore. This is legit. And I can go to his gym. I can actually show up and train in his gym. So I hired trainers and they crushed it the first couple years. We blew up and we had so many clients. It was so fun. But then I do this every time I get my life good, I screw it up. I never went to the beach. I'm a workaholic. I love it too much. I don't relax. I listen to all this advice like you got to have life balance. You think Elon Musk has life balance? You think these people who crush in life, they love their
Exactly.
job. They love what they do. But it can get. I do this to myself. I took on writing the book Glute Lab. I took on, okay, we're only making the hip thruster right now. Let's make glute loops. Let's make this T-bell. Let's make this product. I want to be making all these products because I feel like I can do it better and make them more affordable. I'm not greedy. I don't mark them up so much. So I start making all these physical products. I changed Strong by Bret to Booty by Bret. I'm getting 1,200 extra followers a day. My DMs are through the roof. I'm trying to answer everyone. I'm working, 12 to 18 hours a day. I'm trying to write Glute Lab. I'm trying to make sure my gym is going well. And I'm trying to post good content every day. And I am just, it was a crazy time in my life. I was in over my head. And, I was so stressed out, but I was kind of loving it, but kind of hating it. You don't realize it. It sneaks up on you. You don't realize I haven't taken a good deep breath in ages. I don't even know what it's like to go. So then,
That's why I meditate every day. because if I don't meditate, I don't get that.
Yeah. So then I was like, okay, I need a change. I got to switch things up. So I quit. Like I said, during the pandemic, I quit answering everyone. I remember falling asleep on my couch, waking up and going right back into answering DMs and falling asleep. And I felt, so I was like, I can't answer everyone's DMs every day. Once you get 1 million followers, you just can't do it. I try to get to people, but not everyone. And then I started saying, okay, I hired a CEO. He's in Sydney. And I hired a CEO. I got help. I have, with Booty by Bret, I hired 3 coaches who are moderators who knew my system very well. And now my life, and then eventually I was just like, I'm going to move to Vegas and just get away from it all. And so now I have this house in Vegas, but I still go back to San Diego and visit all the time. But my life is better now. I still take on too much, but I'm learning to say no more often. I'm learning to slow down a little bit, but I still love it. I still, I want to franchise Glute Lab. I want to have a Glute Lab certification and certify people. I'm coming up with my strong lifting certification. I want to grow that, but these things take effort. I know what it's like because I made the hip thrust popular. And by the way, when I invented the hip thrust, I did 1 set in my garage and I went, oh my God, my left glute almost pulled. And I'm like, I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to make the barbell hip thrust popular. And I looked up in the sky. I'm not even like religious or spiritual. I looked up in the sky and I went, from this point forward, my whole life changes. Everything's different from here on out. And on a dime, I turned, and I've spent the last 15 years doing everything I can to make the hip thrust popular, but not just the hip thrust, but also strength and conditioning in general. So your goals change, but my products, back to my products, Maria, I have Booty by Bret. We got 10,800 members right now. It's amazing. It's my thing I'm most proud of. I'm known for the hip thrust, but I feel like my periodization system is also up there with it's so unique. It's so effective. People see such good results. I cycle between, I've never seen anyone do this. Dane, you've studied periodization your whole life. They fluctuate volume and intensity. Cool. Or they're blocks focusing on different qualities, but that's for athletes. What I do is I rotate the focus because I start going, you know what? Whenever I want to set a chin-up PR, I can. Dane, you want to set a chin-up PR, just start doing weighted chin-ups 3 times a week, first in your workout. Very first thing you prioritize it. And guess what? You'll get that chin-up PR. but
Yep.
you can't go up on all my favorite 6 lifts. You have your favorite 6 lifts, Dane. You can't go up on all of them when you're
Very true.
39 years old. So I say
No.
that you're juggling balls. You've got 6 balls that you're juggling, and it's hard, but they're small. But every time you set a PR, they grow. Now, all of a sudden, they get bigger and bigger, and you're trying to juggle. I know it sounds sexual, but you have 6 giant balls you're juggling.
Our listeners are visualizing this. Only our YouTube viewers are being able to watch us talk about this stuff. So for all our listeners, just know you got to go on YouTube and watch this, please.
So you're juggling, and they fall. You can't keep these 6 big balls in the air, so some start falling off, and then you're like, ugh, everything crashes down. But if instead you took 2 balls, it's easy to juggle 2 balls. You take 2 of them and you focus on them.
Yep.
The other 4 balls are right here in maintenance mode. You don't have to do a lot of volume to maintain your strength.
Yeah.
So you always rotate the focus. And there's different methods for every lift, by the way, because you can do chin-ups very frequently. You can't do deadlifts 6 days a week. If you wanted to chin-up 6 days a week, you could. You can't deadlift 6 days a week. So I have different strategies for each lift, but we rotate the foot. You're always going to do hip thrusts.
Yeah.
You're going to do all the main lifts, variations of them, but you're not trying to go up on every lift every month. So we rotate the focus, and it's a very complex system, but I think it's amazing, and I'm so proud of it. So that's the Booty by Bret's my biggest moneymaker. Then I've got Glute Lab, my book that I wrote. That I'm very proud of because I partnered up with Glenn Cordoza because he wrote Supple Leopard, and I'm like, this guy's a winner. I will wait. I had to wait a year for him to be ready to write my book. And I'm like, I'll wait. They're like, can you find someone else? No, I'm doing it with you, Glenn. What I love about Glenn is he's so obsessed with being comprehensive. He's like me. He's like, he needs to. So we made this 636 page book or whatever. It's so it's so thorough, and I love it. So that's my book. I have my products, and then I have my, my coaching and stuff like that. So I'm doing good now. And I probably have 25 physical products now that I sell. And you said the 3 products people need if they're training from home. Well, interestingly, you just need body weight. You need dumbbells, like just even if they're 25-pound dumbbells or something, that's great. Now you can do lunges with weight, Bulgarian splits with weight, step-ups with weight, single leg RDLs. You can put a dumbbell doing single leg hip thrust. Right. If you have a partner there, you can do partner hip thrusts, and people laugh at it. Partner hip thrusts, if you're training from home, are amazing. Hopefully you have a friend or a spouse or something. If you have a man, like Maria, if you had a man, hopefully you date a guy who lifts. You got 200 pounds of resistance. It's hard. You got 200 pounds. That's
just my warm up.
It's like a barbell. Well, it's harder when it's the person, but still, but it's a lot better than nothing. And then you need a band. Bands have taken some flack lately. I'm coming out with some data to show they're amazing. I use them myself. You do band kickbacks. You go straight back. You go diagonal. You do band abduction. You can do them standing. You can do knee banded hip thrusts and glute bridges. You can do all sorts of different abduction movements in the frontal plane and the transverse plane. You can do, you can resist hip extension. You can resist hip abduction. You can resist diagonal, kind of combination of the two. They're amazing. They work so well. People don't know how to use them right. Mark Bell came out with his hip circles years ago. I think I made him, now that I know the band market, I guarantee I made him over $1 million. So I was always promoting his hip circles. And one day I'm like, I heard him talking to Dave Tate on a podcast. And they're like, if you think you can do it, go for it. It's going to be a lot harder than you think. But yeah, you think you can make your own equipment company, go for it. And I'm like, I'm going to go for it. Okay. Yeah. So I did it. And we're crushing it. And you know why? Because Rogue had such good customer service. I'm like, I want to be like Rogue. You guys, you don't know this, Dane, because you're not in the States, but you order something, the next week you get it. So I spend way more money up front ordering a bunch of stuff so that I can sell it and always have inventory, so it gets to you within a week. That's such a cool thing when you're...
I noticed when we went into lockdown, it was one of the things I recommended to a lot of my followers and my clients is because they were available. Everything else was unavailable. Like no equipment was available besides when we were able to go to your site. There was like a delay, I think a week or something, but after it caught up, it was like everyone was able to get stuff. And that's why a lot of the people who, they have that stuff.
Had the equipment manufacturers known that COVID quarantine was coming, you could have been a billionaire. I mean, you were limited by whatever stock you had stocked up on. and
And
like what you could get, because you know, like the whole world was out of plates and things like that. You could have been like, I'm sure Rogue, and people were like, oh my God, had we known this was coming, we could have stocked up and sold. You could have made a
everything,
fortune.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm lucky that I had some stock to
So awesome.
sell.
And
Yeah.
Brett,
But
it's honestly been such a pleasure chatting with you, and I feel like we can go on and on and on, and there's
I
just
know
so
it's
much
been
to learn
90
from you.
minutes. We needed.
No worries. No, but it's been such a pleasure chatting with you. And
I
there's
agree.
so many podcasts, not only about, your techniques, what you're all about, but even tips for a lot of our listeners on how to grow their business. And I think at the end of the day, my biggest takeaway from all of this is your passion. You're just so
Yeah.
passionate about everything that you're doing. You could be making zero, you could be making $1 billion, regardless the effort and work that you're putting into these things. It just shows just by the way you talk about these things, and it shows even with the content that you put out. And I'm very grateful to have you at this time during the industry and even getting to chat with you here. And I know our listeners are very grateful for having you on. And I can't say thank you enough. Thank you. The Glutes, thank you.
Yeah.
Everyone thanks you. And it's been such a pleasure chatting.
Indeed.
And I'm
Indeed.
going to hold you to my Vegas trip of
Yeah.
working at the
You
Glute Lab.
better.
I'm going to message
You
you when I
better.
come to
Yeah, take him up on that.
I am. I've wrote that
Yeah.
down.
So yeah, whenever you guys want me on, let me know. I love these things.
Wonderful.
You guys make me look good by asking me good questions and letting me rant. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate what you guys do for the industry as well. You guys take the education part so seriously, and you're reaching the masses. So you guys keep up the
No,
good
thank
work
you.
too. And I really appreciate coming on.